when I toggled that master relay switch at 2:47 p.m. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, 847 freight trucks across the Memphis Industrial Corridor stopped receiving automated route telemetry. Traffic signals at 47 critical intersections along the highway grid froze mid-cycle. Loading dock scheduling monitors at 23 separate distribution hubs went completely dark. 4 years and 8 months of flawless freight routing dropped dead in the span of 3 seconds. Sitting in a corner vinyl booth at Mickey's Diner, sipping scalding black coffee poured by Peggy, I watched the digital heartbeat of Apex Freight Solutions flatline on my encrypted laptop screen. I could practically smell the ozone rising from their panicked corporate headquarters 5 miles down the road. But to understand how an arrogant vice president backed herself into a multi-million-dollar corner, you have to understand how the system was built and who I am. My name is Harlan Vance. I am 50 years old, and I have spent 23 years running an independent transport infrastructure and systems consulting firm. Before launching my consultancy, I served 6 years in the United States Army as a logistics sergeant, coordinating heavy supply convoys across volatile operational zones. In the military, you absorb a fundamental truth early on. When supply lines collapse, people do not just miss delivery deadlines, they lose everything. That operational mindset shaped my entire civilian career. I operate out of a modest brick home 20 minutes outside Memphis, Tennessee, with a specialized hardware workshop attached to my garage. I do not maintain a glossy corporate website, nor do I publish grandstanding posts about corporate synergy on networking platforms. Clients find me through word of mouth when their supply chains are collapsing, their regulatory audits are failing, and their operations chiefs are on the verge of losing their livelihoods. That was precisely how I connected with Apex Freight Solutions 4 years and 8 months ago. Rayford Ray Miller, who served as their chief of operations at the time, called my private line on a humid Thursday morning. Rayford was a veteran of the freight industry who had spent 30 years climbing the ranks from loading docks to executive suites. He understood diesel engines, warehouse clearance heights, and human psychology, but he was completely out of his depth when corporate headquarters tried to digitize their regional fleet. His voice trembled with the distinct tension of a seasoned manager watching his retirement package evaporate before his eyes. Rayford explained that Apex had just failed its 4th consecutive Department of Transportation compliance audit in 24 months. State transportation inspectors were threatening to revoke their interstate operating permits due to severe route logging discrepancies, dock congestion delays, and unsafe driver hours caused by chaotic scheduling. He told me that corporate executives had spent 2 years buying off-the-shelf software packages that never integrated with regional traffic infrastructure. They had 3 separate legacy databases that refused to communicate, forcing dispatchers to make hundreds of manual phone calls every shift just to track manifest updates. When I conducted my initial facility walkthrough 48 hours later, the operational chaos was appalling. Freight haulers backed up for nearly a mile outside the main facility entrance because automated gate signals were locked in a default timing pattern, established back in 1998. Drivers sat idling in their cabs for hours while warehouse crews frantically searched for lost manifest sheets. Every shift change lost over 2 full hours just trying to resynchronize dispatch schedules with warehouse bay availability. Rayford looked at me with exhaustion, etched deep into his face, and admitted that if someone did not fix their core infrastructure immediately, the company would be forced into receivership within 6 months. I took the contract, but on my own terms. Over the next 18 months, I built Apex, an entirely custom logistics architecture from the ground up. I wrote 120,000 lines of modular code, crafting proprietary routing algorithms designed specifically to navigate the unique traffic density patterns of the Memphis freight grid. I engineered real-time GPS tracking integration, dynamic loading dock allocation modules, and automated signal timing synchronization that communicated directly with municipal traffic control nodes. Every database schema, network protocol, and hardware interface was built from scratch and tested until the system operated with mathematical perfection. Crucially, I retained full ownership of the intellectual property. Section 4 of our master agreement was explicit. Apex Freight Solutions was purchasing a non-exclusive, non-transferable operational lease to utilize system outputs. All source code, underlying algorithms, base architecture, and physical control relays remained the sole personal property of Harlan Vance, protected under Section 106 of Title 17 of the United States Code and federal trade secret statutes. Rayford Miller signed that contract without a single moment of hesitation. Rayford was an old-school operator who understood the fundamental difference between leasing a high-performance machine and owning the factory that built it. He knew he was paying for reliable operational access and ongoing technical stewardship, not purchasing my life's work for pennies on the dollar. For 4 years and 8 months, the arrangement functioned like clockwork. Monthly lease payments arrived in my bank account on the first business day of every month without fail. The system operated with absolute reliability. 0 missed delivery windows, 0 Department of Transportation compliance violations, and 0 dock bottlenecking incidents. State auditors passed Apex with pristine marks during subsequent inspections. Rayford Miller would periodically send me brief, professional emails containing concrete performance metrics and cost savings reports, always demonstrating deep respect for the boundaries of our agreement. Then, 6 months ago, Rayford Miller retired to Florida. 3 weeks later, corporate headquarters installed Evelyn Thorpe as the new vice president of operations. Evelyn Thorpe arrived at the Memphis headquarters with a freshly minted Master of Business Administration degree from Northwestern University, a custom designer leather portfolio, and the unshakable arrogance of a mid-30s executive who believed corporate buzzwords could replace decades of practical field engineering. She wore $500 designer suits, carried herself with artificial condescension, and treated long-term operational partners like entry-level subordinates. She did not bother to schedule an introductory meeting or request an operational overview of our infrastructure. Instead, her very first communication to my office arrived in the form of a cold automated email template bearing the subject line, Vendor Expense Optimization and Third-Party Dependency Review. The email was saturated with corporate terminology about recurring expenditure reductions, third-party operational risk mitigation, and aggressive cost-cutting targets. My monthly invoice had not fluctuated by a single dollar in over 4 years. The lease rate was extraordinarily reasonable, considering the millions of dollars in operational savings and compliance penalty avoidances my system generated every single quarter. But Evelyn Thorpe did not see value, performance, or legal history. She merely saw a recurring line item on a spreadsheet and assumed an independent contractor could be easily bullied into submission. I responded to her email with measured professional courtesy. I attached a copy of the original master service agreement executed by Rayford Miller, along with a concise executive summary highlighting system uptime metrics, compliance records, and routing efficiency statistics over the preceding 56 months. Her reply arrived less than 2 hours later. She completely ignored the historical performance data and curtly instructed me to prepare comprehensive technical documentation for an upcoming internal assessment of operational frameworks. The phrase operational frameworks immediately raised red flags in my mind. In my experience, when young corporate executives use abstract jargon to describe customized software infrastructure, it usually means they are preparing to eliminate the developer while attempting to seize the underlying asset. I knew right then that Evelyn Thorpe was not looking to optimize vendor relationships. She was planning to confiscate my proprietary system to inflate her own quarterly performance metrics and justify her executive appointment. 3 days later, my suspicions were confirmed when an email landed in my inbox with the subject line, Software Source Package and System Transfer Requirements. Evelyn requested that I immediately upload all primary source code repositories, underlying database architecture schematics, administrative root credentials, and algorithm compilations to Apex's internal cloud servers for internal evaluation and potential transition management. She treated 4 years and 8 months of proprietary engineering like an off-the-shelf company utility that belonged to corporate headquarters by default. I drafted a precise, professional reply stating that I would gladly provide all standard operational reports, interface user guides, and data outputs authorized under their active lease agreement, but emphasized that core source code and infrastructure architecture remained my exclusive personal property under federal copyright law. I attached Section 4 of the signed master contract, highlighting the explicit legal protections in bold text. Evelyn Thorpe's counter-response was swift and dismissive. She wrote back within an hour, asserting that because Apex Freight Solutions had made monthly payments during my tenure, any logic frameworks, operational protocols, or software code created for their freight routing constituted work made for hire under federal law, making it the exclusive intellectual property of Apex. She concluded the email by stating, "We will be transitioning all routing and infrastructure management to internal control effective immediately. Thank you for your past services. Your access contract is hereby terminated." It was classic corporate overreach. Evelyn had zero legal grounding for her work-made-for-hire claim, as our contract was executed years after my core routing engine was developed and explicitly contained non-assignment provisions. Furthermore, under federal law, independent contractors retain copyright unless an explicit written instrument transferring ownership is signed by both parties. She was simply gambling that an independent consultant in his 50s would panic at the sight of a corporate termination letter and hand over millions of dollars in intellectual property without a fight. What Evelyn Thorpe failed to realize was that she was playing a game she did not remotely understand. She genuinely believed that my logistics system was merely a collection of software files sitting on Apex's office desktop computers. She had no comprehension of the physical master relay control panel housed inside my garage workshop 20 minutes away. Over the course of 4 years, I had integrated dedicated hardware switches, microprocessors, and encrypted network tunnels that connected directly to municipal traffic control hubs and regional fleet transponders. The office computers at Apex merely displayed a graphical user interface, a visual mirror of the real-time processing taking place inside my workshop. 4 days after sending her unilateral termination notice, Evelyn issued a calendar invitation for a remote video conference titled Service Transition and Asset Handoff Discussion. The invite listed several corporate attendees, including Brenda Fletcher from Procurement and a junior compliance assistant named Chloe Barrett. Conspicuously absent from the invite list was Dean Kowalski, the current director of freight operations and a pragmatic former Navy logistics coordinator, who actually understood how our physical transport network functioned. I joined the video conference 5 minutes early on Thursday afternoon. I sat at my home office desk wearing a clean work shirt with my military commendation plaques and professional engineering licenses clearly visible on the wall behind me. Evelyn Thorpe logged into the call 3 minutes late, settling into her plush executive chair with an air of smug triumph. Brenda Fletcher from Procurement joined shortly after, looking over a stack of vendor termination checklists, while young Chloe Barrett readied a notebook to record the formal transition proceedings. "Good afternoon, Harlan," Evelyn began, her voice dripping with artificial warmth. "We appreciate you joining us today. As stated in my previous correspondence, Apex has executed a strategic pivot to bring all operational infrastructure management in-house. We appreciate your historical contributions during our growth phase, but we are now prepared to assume full internal control of our digital assets." I maintained an unreadable, calm expression and looked directly into my webcam lens. "To clarify for the record, Ms. Thorpe, you are formally terminating Apex Freight Solutions' operational lease agreement for my routing infrastructure. Is that correct?" "That is correct," Evelyn replied, leaning back in her executive chair and lacing her fingers together. "And as part of the standard offboarding procedure, we require the immediate transfer of all core source repositories, administrative master passwords, system architecture blueprints, and algorithmic documentation so our internal technology team can maintain operational continuity." I did not flinch. "I am afraid I cannot grant that request, Ms. Thorpe. Under Section 4 of the master lease contract signed by your predecessor, Apex leased operational access to system outputs only. You never purchased ownership of the source code, hardware architecture, or underlying logic engines. Those remain my exclusive personal property under Section 106 of Title 17 of the United States Code. Evelyn's polished smile tightened, a flicker of genuine irritation flashing across her eyes. Harlan, let us be realistic here. Apex paid your monthly invoices for over 4 years. Under standard corporate business practices, any software system utilized for core company operations belongs to the enterprise. Our legal department is fully prepared to enforce our rights to corporate assets. We are not going to be held hostage by an external vendor. Paying a monthly lease fee for 4 years gives you the right to use the vehicle, Miss Thorpe. Not the title to the automobile manufacturer's assembly plant, I replied calmly. Rayford Miller reviewed and executed those terms with your corporate legal team 4 years ago because he recognized that proprietary infrastructure requires independent ownership and specialized maintenance. If you attempt to copy, extract, or reverse engineer any portion of my system, you will be committing willful copyright infringement and violating the Defend Trade Secrets Act. Under Title 18, Section 1836 of the United States Code, Brenda Fletcher from procurement shifted uncomfortably in her seat, glancing down at her copy of the original contract. Chloe Barrett stopped writing altogether, picking up on the sudden legal tension in the room. Evelyn Thorpe's facial composure hardened completely. She leaned forward toward her camera, her tone turning cold and aggressive. We are not interested in technical semantics or historical contract debates, Mr. Vance. Apex is a multi-million-dollar logistics enterprise. We will not allow our regional transport operations to be disrupted by an independent contractor's refusal to cooperate with corporate policy. You will submit all operational documentation and system files by 5 p.m. tomorrow, or our legal counsel will initiate immediate court action to seize the assets. I will provide precisely what Apex is legally entitled to receive upon contract termination, I stated evenly. That will be sufficient. Evelyn snapped, eager to end the call before her corporate posture cracked further. We expect full delivery by the deadline. The call ended abruptly as she disconnected the line. I sat quietly in my office for a moment, appreciating the breathtaking depth of her ignorance. Evelyn Thorpe was so consumed by corporate authority and spreadsheet mechanics that she had never bothered to investigate how the system actually functioned. She assumed that by demanding files, she would receive the operational keys to a freight kingdom. Over the next 24 hours, I carefully assembled Evelyn's requested deliverable. I compiled a clean, beautifully formatted documentation package consisting of comprehensive user interface manuals, visual dashboard navigation guides, static database layout schematics, and high-level workflow flowcharts. It was a polished, 60-page technical manual that explained precisely how to navigate the user interface screens, complete with color screenshots and animated diagram mockups. However, it contained 0 lines of executable source code, 0 access keys to the proprietary background routing engines, and 0 connectivity protocols for the physical hardware relays in my garage. To an executive like Evelyn, who only looked at surface displays, it appeared to be a complete, exhaustive technical handoff. On Friday afternoon at 4:55 p.m., I emailed the documentation package directly to Evelyn Thorpe, Brenda Fletcher, and the corporate legal department. I included a single, precise sentence in the cover body: operational interface documentation delivered pursuant to contract termination. Core back-end infrastructure and proprietary processing engines remain protected personal property and are excluded from this release. After hitting send, I walked out to my garage workshop. I powered up the master control console that sat on my workbench. Arrayed across the custom aluminum panel were rows of physical relay switches, diagnostic status LEDs, and digital frequency monitors. Every green light on the console hummed with steady activity, representing real-time telemetry flowing between 847 trucks, 47 municipal traffic signals, and 23 regional loading docks. I reached out, rested my hand against the main master power relay, and smiled. The education of Vice President Evelyn Thorpe was about to begin. On Tuesday afternoon, I arrived at Mickey's Diner at 2 o'clock sharp, taking my usual corner booth by the window. Peggy brought over a fresh pot of dark roast coffee, filling my heavy ceramic mug without asking. I opened my ruggedized laptop, established an encrypted hardware tunnel to my garage control panel, and brought up the master telemetry dashboard. Everything on the screen was functioning in absolute harmony. 847 freight vehicles were navigating optimized corridors across Shelby County. Loading dock queues at all 23 distribution facilities were operating with 2-minute turnarounds. Municipal signal relays were dynamically adjusting green light durations based on real-time traffic density. It was a masterpiece of operational engineering, executing millions of calculations every second. At 2:45 p.m., an urgent text message hit my personal cell phone from Evelyn Thorpe, having trouble authenticating root administrative credentials for automated dispatch engine. Send master password immediately. I glanced at the message, set my phone face down on the table, and took a slow sip of coffee. At 2:47 p.m. precisely, I clicked the remote override icon on my terminal screen, executing a clean hardware decoupling command to the master relays in my garage. The impact was instantaneous and total. Across my monitoring screens, every real-time data stream froze mid-transmission. Green status indicators turned a dull, lifeless gray. Live GPS tracking signals dropped to 0. Municipal signal timing protocols reverted instantly to uncoordinated local default patterns. Dock assignment algorithms ceased calculating sequence updates. I had engineered the system disconnection with deliberate grace. There were no dramatic software crashes, no flashing error boxes, and no corrupted database files. The user interface displays on the desktop monitors at Apex headquarters remained fully powered up, showing the last cached operational state from 2:46 p.m. To a dispatcher or executive looking at a computer screen, everything appeared perfectly normal. But in the physical world outside, the central nervous system of their logistics network had just been erased. For the first 10 minutes, the illusion of operation persisted. Drivers already executing assigned routes continued down highways, oblivious to the silence on their telemetry bands. But rapidly, the physical reality began to collapse. At 2:57 p.m., live municipal traffic cameras showed a line of 6 heavy freight trucks stranded at a major intersection on Lamar Avenue. The traffic signal was stuck on a perpetual red light because the adaptive signal integration engine was no longer sending timing overrides to the city control box. By 3:15 p.m., total operational gridlock took hold of the network. At the Western Distribution Center, 4 60-foot tractor trailers arrived simultaneously at Loading Bay 7. Because the dynamic dock allocation algorithm was offline, all 4 drivers possessed cached digital manifests assigning them to the exact same bay at the exact same minute. Yard spotters screamed into radios, security gates locked up, and delivery queues spilled out of the industrial park onto the main interstate highway. At 3:22 p.m., the first confused email arrived from Operations Director Dean Kowalski. Harlan, experiencing severe telemetry dropouts across regional dispatch terminals. Signal timing frozen at key gates. Please advise if system maintenance is underway. Dean was a smart guy who understood physical systems. He was beginning to realize that the computer screens were lying to his staff, but he was still treating it as a technical anomaly. I did not respond. By 3:40 p.m., the trickle of emails became a torrential flood. Dispatchers reported that driver navigation units were displaying conflicting routes. Warehouse managers reported 30 truck backups at inbound receiving docks. State transport inspectors were already pulling over stranded freight trucks at weighing stations because real-time electronic logging manifests failed to update. At 3:48 p.m., my phone began ringing continuously. Calls came in from corporate headquarters, local facility managers, and dispatch supervisors. I let every call go straight to voicemail. I pulled up my custom financial impact calculator, which tracked fleet idle times, fuel wastage, contractual delay penalties, and compliance violation fines in real time. The conservative financial burn rate for Apex Freight Solutions was running at approximately $180,000 per hour in direct losses and regulatory liabilities. At 4:15 p.m., a desperate text message arrived from Evelyn Thorpe, emergency operational failure. Supply grid paralyzed. Call my office immediately. I deleted the text message without replying. 8 minutes later, an official call came through from the Apex Legal Department main line. I declined the incoming call. By 4:45 p.m., my phone registered 47 missed calls and 23 unread voicemails. The regional freight network of Apex Freight Solutions was suffering a complete operational hemorrhage. Executives who had spent years believing that logistics was merely an abstract game played on computer screens were now watching billions of dollars in commercial freight grind to a dead stop across 3 states. I opened a blank document on my laptop and drafted a formal document titled Emergency System Reactivation and Infrastructure Restoration Agreement. The terms were absolute and non-negotiable. First, immediate wire transfer payment of a non-refundable emergency restoration fee equal to 2.5 times my standard annual lease rate. Second, absolute written corporate acknowledgement that Harlan Vance retains sole, unassailable ownership of all source code, algorithms, and physical master control infrastructure. Third, a mandatory 72-hour legal indemnity period protecting the contractor from any corporate liability resulting from the unauthorized termination attempt. I emailed the restoration agreement directly to Senior Vice President Grant Montgomery, the corporate legal counsel, and Operations Director Dean Kowalski, placing Evelyn Thorpe on copy. I added a brief subject line: Emergency Infrastructure Restoration Terms Available. Upon full execution and wire transfer. I closed my laptop, signaled Peggy for a coffee refill, and waited for corporate panic to reach its mathematical breaking point. At 4:58 p.m., an urgent calendar invitation popped up on my phone: Emergency Executive Board Session and Operational Recovery Conference. I logged into the video conference call at 5 o'clock sharp from my home office, the screen filled with the pale, panicked faces of top corporate leadership. At the center of the video grid was Senior Vice President Grant Montgomery, his tie pulled loose, his shirt sleeves rolled up, looking like a man who had spent the last 2 hours witnessing the total destruction of his corporate balance sheet. Beside him sat 2 senior corporate attorneys frantically reviewing legal documents. Operations Director Dean Kowalski was visible on a mobile connection from a distribution center parking lot, surrounded by the flashing amber lights of stranded freight trucks. Evelyn Thorpe occupied a tiny video window in the bottom corner of the display. Her designer confidence had completely vanished. She sat silent, pale, and visually trembling, stripped of all authority while her superiors took control of the crisis. "Harlan, thank God you joined," Grant Montgomery began, his voice raspy with immense strain. "We are facing a catastrophic operational breakdown across our entire Mid-South distribution network. Over 800 freight trucks are completely immobilized. Municipal authorities are threatening to shut down our primary corridor access, and our major retail clients are preparing to file breach of contract suits. We need our systems restored immediately." "I am well aware of the operational disruption, Mr. Montgomery," I replied in a steady, even tone. "As I informed your Vice President of Operations last week, terminating my service agreement severed operational access to my proprietary master processing infrastructure. The static user interface manuals I provided yesterday fulfilled your contract termination requirements, but as stated, they contain no core routing logic or physical control connectivity." One of the corporate attorneys leaned toward his microphone. "Mr. Vance, your emergency proposal demands a financial restoration fee that is 2.5 times your standard annual lease rate, payable exclusively via immediate wire transfer. Given the severe economic duress our company is experiencing right now, we consider those financial terms extraordinarily punitive." I looked the attorney dead in the eye. "What you call punitive, counselor, is the actual market cost of emergency technical recovery after corporate theft was attempted against an independent developer. Your Vice President of Operations attempted to unilaterally confiscate millions of dollars of proprietary intellectual property, protected under Section 106 Hups of Title 17 of the United States Code and federal trade secret laws. She falsely claimed work-made-for-hire provisions that have zero legal validity, terminated my contract, and attempted to operate critical transport infrastructure using cosmetic user interface screenshots. Grant Montgomery turned his head slowly toward Evelyn Thorpe's video window, casting a look of fiery fury that cut through the screen like a blade. Evelyn shrank back into her chair, unable to offer a single word of defense. Harlan. Dean Kowalski spoke up from his mobile feed, his voice heavy with practical reality. If we execute this wire transfer right now, how long until my dispatchers have live routing data and dock control back on their screens? 20 minutes from the moment my financial institution confirms receipt of funds, I answered without hesitation. My master hardware relays in my garage are powered up and standing by. Once cleared, I will re-establish the encrypted data tunnels. Grant Montgomery did not waste another second on legal debate. He looked directly at his corporate treasurer off camera and issued a sharp command. Wire the full emergency fee to Harlan Vance's account immediately. Authorize the transfer now. The legal counsel attempted to intervene, but Grant silenced him with a harsh hand gesture. We are losing $180,000 every single hour this network remains dark, counselor. Execute the transfer. For 22 minutes, the conference call remained in tense, absolute silence. No one spoke. The only sound was the distant noise of idling diesel engines coming through Dean Kowalski's mobile microphone. I sat calmly at my desk, monitoring my banking application on my phone. At 5:26 p.m., my mobile banking app chimed with a high-priority notification. The wire transfer had cleared in full. The funds were fully confirmed and locked in my account. Payment confirmed, I announced clearly to the board session. Re-establishing master operational relays now. I turned to my bench terminal, entered my master encryption key, and flipped the physical master relay toggle on my garage control panel. Instantly, the diagnostic monitors on my workbench flashed from solid red to vibrant green. Across Shelby County, encrypted data feeds flooded back into fleet transponders. Municipal traffic signal boxes re-established automated timing protocols. Loading dock monitors at all 23 distribution centers instantly refreshed, displaying dynamic queue assignments and clear manifest schedules. On Dean Kowalski's mobile feed, the change was dramatic. The massive backup of freight trucks began moving in orderly sequences as traffic signals turned green along Lamar Avenue. Telemetry is fully restored, Dean shouted over the noise of accelerating engines. Dock algorithms are live. We are moving freight. Grant Montgomery let out a massive sigh of relief, slumping back into his executive chair. He looked at me through the screen with profound respect mixed with absolute defeat. Thank you for your efficiency, Harlan. We will be in touch regarding long-term arrangements. Have a good evening, gentlemen, I said, and disconnected the call without waiting for a reply. 2 weeks later, an official express courier package arrived at my home office from corporate headquarters. Inside was a newly drafted 3-year master infrastructure lease agreement, authored by Diane Reynolds, the newly appointed vice president of corporate strategy. The contract doubled my baseline monthly lease rate, guaranteed absolute proprietary protection for my source code and hardware relays, included heavy financial penalties for any future unilateral cancellation attempts, and explicitly prohibited Evelyn Thorpe from ever contacting my firm or interfering with regional transport operations. Attached was a formal letter informing me that Evelyn Thorpe had been quietly removed from operations and assigned to an administrative desk in corporate compliance with zero operational oversight. Word of the Memphis freight blackout and its swift resolution spread like wildfire through regional logistics circles. Within 30 days, I received formal inquiry letters from major logistics enterprises in Nashville, Atlanta, and Birmingham, all seeking customized transport infrastructure designed by an Army veteran who knew how to defend his legal rights and master control relays. I opened a fresh document on my terminal, titled it my 2025 Standard Infrastructure Service Agreement, and began setting the terms for my next major deployment. In the world of high-stakes corporate operations, arrogance may buy you an executive title and a designer portfolio, but real engineering, ironclad legal contracts, and physical control will win every single time.